Good evening. Good night, Mark. Tonight we're meeting first with Mark Staff Brandl, and was educated initially in Illinois as a moderately successful artist in Chicago. I don't know why he's an expat and moved to Switzerland. I don't know if it was love or aesthetics or just, a crazy quirk. And recently, Mark has, I think, distinguished himself from every other artist I can think of. And that is that he just got a doctorate degree. So he's now Dr. Brandl. With that said, Dr. Brandl, a.k.a. Mark, actually, why did you left the Chicago area and flew so far away?
Well, I have a little cheat sheet here so I can look at my different things. But I was born in Peoria, but never actually lived there. Grew up south of Chicago. The longer lived anywhere in the U.S. was Chicago. And it was that thing which I've talked about a lot with in connection with Wesley Kimler and so on, with the discussions about it's a really promising area, especially with Gary Justice and things like that happening. And then I'm switching my style, and I went away from conceptual art right as the conceptualists came in. The people who I felt were copying New York stuff, and I just realized Chicago was not for me, that there was not any possibilities. And Chicago was, at that time, before that, I was on the verge of becoming LA. And I told that would have been true, except that it was killed by the Kirschner clan. And so it went back to being a one for a pond, and just didn't interest me. I was on my way to go to New York and Field Museum, where Mary and I work, and my wife, through Max Tavern, a bar in Chicago, in the artist bar. She wanted to stay in Chicago, so we stayed there a little bit. Later, we lived in Korea a year. She's Swiss. Before she went back to Switzerland to do her career, I sold an entire show and paintings, which was really great. So I thought, well, the hell with it. And
where was that show? The Caribbean?
What was that one? No, that was in Chicago.
Okay.
Oh God, it's 88. So this is a while. And all paintings. They were big paintings. It was that installation I did with Kyle Gahn. I saw all the paintings for that.
Something?
It was some kind of, what did you say?
Street something?
Yeah, that thing. That's right. And then I saw all those paintings. And so this out my little mention I had at the Field Museum and had all that thing and followed her. So, which is what most people in Switzerland, either because they're political refugees or because they married a Swiss person, because massive amounts of foreigners and larger of them are married to foreigners, which they have to. It's a small country, and they all married each other, then pretty soon they'd be retarded. So, foreigners.
You mentioned in the beginning of your, I'm not supposed to use German words like spiel, am I? You mentioned in the beginning there about neo-conceptualism and various isms. Is that important to you? Do you think paying attention to...
So all artists, whether they know it or not, so you might as well use the right terminology. I mean, for instance, in that whole thing, the neo-conceptualists refer to themselves as conceptualists, and they're not. They're neo-conceptualists by pure historical definition, because conceptualism quasi ended, and then went to a bunch of first, and then neo-expressionism was the big thing, and then when it comes back, it's neo-conceptualism by definition. So it's good to keep a historical reference. I think most of the terms are inadequate, but there's no reason to ignore them. They're there, and ever. It's a lot of times to have a name pins you down. It also gets you to sell a lot. I mean, I tell my students, make up a name for my art, and I'll pay you for it, because I know from art, from Boston with German expressionism, with realists, with many other. Once they had a name, they sold. So it's not terrible, but it's useful. It's the way we speak, shorthanded, so we know what we're talking about without having to go on and on about dates and so on.
Mark, I think that's the thing I realize you and I disagree on. I don't find those labels all that. I mean, I think it's important to know your art history, but I find that the labels to a large extent, come from the exterior and don't necessarily apply to what somebody thinks that they're doing. And I think it is confining. But I'm going to have to focus on those affinities. Can you tell me, I mean, Mark is in Chicago every year or two and has stayed in touch with a lot of people here and contributes periodically, probably more than Wesley Kimler does, to his own blog, which is sharkforum.org. And Mark has a lot of opinions and expresses them about what's going on in Europe and is very aware of that scene also. But because you critique the European scene, Mark, can you tell me how it functions and how it functions differently than the model we're familiar with in the United States?
Quite a bit. The main thing is, I'm not saying this is better or worse. There's better and worse things to everything. Just as I know about the names, but there's positive and negative aspects to everything. But where it's gallery dependent, it's probably the whole American capitalism thing. I mean, you would never have an artist here who writes Mark Brandl represented by so and so. It's always, it's like a title that artists in America give to always just represent, as if Ami gave them permission to exist or something. Represented by this gallery or that gallery. You have galleries. If you have a great one like Haus und Wielt or something, of course, then you want people to know that because you'll make a fortune. But don't make it such a deal. So the biggest difference is we have a massive amount of museums and Halle, which is these art non-collecting museums. That makes it very different. Plus, something else that makes it very different is we have much more direct contact with curators. We get lots of visits from curators and Kulturfrachter, so that's the cultural that run in the government. I don't know what that's called in English. The word government, like a cultural representative, come to our studios a lot, and collectors. They come right to our studio, so you can live by selling out of your studio pretty well, and you get shows that way. They become almost of no importance whatsoever. That can be bad, because I think galleries are cool because it's people put money where their mouth is. But it can also be opened up a bit for other possibilities. So that's the
more curators because there are more institutions.
Yeah, and that's good and bad, right? Have you noticed that a large percentage of the international curators are Swiss and things like that? They think that kind of bureaucratic structure better, side, but also on the other side, they're all looking for things, wanting to do stuff. They'll be more active with coming to you and searching you out. And so you have opportunities that way. I have regular visits from curators in my studio. And it's no big deal to hit them up for it and say, come on over.
How far are they traveling to get to you?
Well, quite far, actually, which is sometimes the problem, because I'm really sort of in the middle. Then again, you have to think Switzerland's about the size of Los Angeles, so it's gigantic. It's not, but they do still see it as going out to the countryside. So if they're going maybe between Zurich and into Austria or something like that, because like I said, because I'm down the mountain here, I can see Germany and Austria. So if you're on the way, they could come by or something like that.
So their curators are not bound by territory, in part because the countries around you are smaller.
Yeah.
I mean, that there are very many Chicago artists who see foreign curators come knock on their door. But
because they're usually there. There's a big problem there, because when they do, they immediately go to the local hotshot and they should go see, and they're sent to the kind of consensus list, and that's here too. But you can usually hit them up more yourself a bit. You run into more. But we're run by language areas here. You have the Francophone world, the Anglophone world, the Germanophone world. So in Switzerland, having 4 languages plus sort of the unofficial 5th one of English, we kind of lap on other stuff. We're the baby brother to several different places. I'm mostly German and Swiss German, but because of English, of course, then I can contact even more.
It could be that European galleries were more known to pay their artists a stipend and buy work outright and didn't take work on consignment to the same extent that American galleries have for quite a while. That true to the same extent?
That's a gone, because I like to get a salary too. Yeah. Well, what happens is, because they abandoned that in a way, what's happened is that they don't have as many demands. And so very many, unless you're really a superstar, Horn or Pipilotti or something, don't have an exclusive contract. And then if you're a superstar, they want an exclusive contract almost for the world, like Pipilotti Rist has with Ivan Hauser and Biel. That's Ivan Biel. They will, but other than that, no. And so we kind of go show to show, and so that's why you're sort of, when you ask me for the one show, well, do you have a gallery or not? It's like, well, on one hand, I have like 5, and on the other hand, no, because I haven't signed a contract with anybody. We go show. When I sell around the show, or even later, when anything is connected to the gallery in some way, I made the sale through them, then I give them their percentage, which is 50%. If it's not, then I don't. And then we sort of go shows to show.
When did it change? How did it change? What's that?
Galleries died everywhere in the world, actually. It's not all that important anymore. The shots, as I've mentioned in many of my sort of critical articles, are the important stuff, although they're not getting rich. But the pop stars are the internet satchel ring curators, that's what we call them, the international curators, that change the whole brunt. Here, galleries basically, in their bad side now, is they essentially wait till someone is famous in a college situation. And the Kunsthalles have gotten to be not that hot, too. They wait till someone's already famous in Documenta or the Venice Biennale or so, and that also chosen by an international curator. So it's a small little kind of curator of sorts that picks the things. That's what counts, and then you get into the galleries. So essentially of no importance. So, oops.
I don't feel like the American system has changed that much.
Did you just go over my desktop?
Yeah, I got it. I think it's informative for people to know where you're coming from.
Well, I made a little if you want to. I also made a little folder where I can show more stuff, but this is my latest thing. In these walk-in, I do 2 works now called panels and covers, but they're usually in the same works, and it's a kind of form of extended painting. That this is one of paneled installations, which are kind of walk-in, or at least the whole wall installation. The black stuff is painted directly on the wall. Other ones are oil on canvas paintings. The paint off to the right, you can see I'm always standing there stupid in these pictures, so you can see how big they are. To the left, there's a life-size picture of me standing in a doorway, and there's the dog. Zoom out a little, you can see a close-up of the sequentiality. I can't do it because you have. On the left-hand side are those first, the blue and then the 2 orange ones. On the right-hand side are the next 2. So there's a sequentiality to it. This dog walks in, and then walks through the space, and then walks out. That's just tail at the end, and then is gone. So it's kind of a loop. Yeah. Want me to click on mine and on the
Hold on. I'll turn this over to you. I've been questioned today about how the internet has changed and blogs have changed, and I think these webinars are pretty nicely cutting edge. And
one of the things I did was I studied some stuff for distance education way back, because I thought that would be a really interesting thing to go into, because the goal in education is to education. And it wasn't possible, but now it is. Can I go to my?
Yeah, share my desktop, I think.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Oops. I don't want that. Shut that down. Klein webinar pictures. Here we go. What can I do here? I'll zip through really fast.
Wait a minute, I want to see that one. Brandl Prelude cover small. Isn't that me?
I'll do here. What I got going here? There's my self-portrait. Oops. There's the portrait handmade to me as the your art front of the painting to show the general sizes. Portrait as a figure. This is my studio, actually just a little corner of about a quarter of it, which was in the newspaper for some reason. Real interesting because I had two shows. I was in three different museums, and one was in New York, and at the same time in a small village called Ober-Utzwil, and they thought that was hilarious. So, this is how I started. This is 7 years old. I made this. So that what goes around comes around. These are stuff, little kid. This was a teacher in comics, Gene Colan. That's his work. That drew for me. I'm going fast just so you see a few things. This is Gene Colan. I drew him, a work of art by me. I was by him. From a dissertation, it's part of me contemplating my own development. See my father in the upper left-hand corner as a sign painter, which also influenced me. This work I did in Chicago first, kind of conceptual performance things. This is Rough Space. That's me in an installation. This is one artist is Alchemy at Name Gallery. And this is one I sold, maybe. Anyway, I did everything of it. I sold everything eventually, I have to say that. This is in front of, I was doing some museum-based work. Then when I went to Switzerland, I zoomed in on some aspects and started this kind of abstract stuff. It's not abstract, it's a giant painting, but it's actually the ear of my wife. Which is at the Kunst. So we have a lot of museums. That's an important point. We have such heavy museum density that's important. This is quite a lot of works.
You know, I'm on time talking about strategy here, you know, and how artists need to be independent and take responsibility for themselves, which it might have to do with, I mean, maybe you could label yourself, but I don't know that you want to try and follow trends. I mean, I think if you're looking at what a trend is, by the time you identify it, it's too late. Yeah. What do you think about, I mean, I suppose you concur to artists taking responsibility for oneself or turning it over to the curators?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's my main thing. That's why I do my intellectual activities, is I think, you know, as Wesley points out, you have to be responsible for, you know, kind of career, and you point out that too in a different way. But my thing is to be also intellectually responsible. I've often gone against the trend. This was going the wrong way. I went out of conceptualism right as it became the trend, but I had to follow where my art went, and then I try and beat my path anyway. So I may be just a little bit weirdly idiosyncratic. Well, I am definitely idiosyncratic. Anyway, Cuspit says that's the way to be to get anywhere now, and I think he may be right. This is sequential stuff. So here's something I do, those to reach different audiences. That speaks to your question. I do things in a variety of ways just to reach different people. This, for instance, was a stone lithograph I made. It's sequential. Then I also did it as an installation of paintings, and it also existed. It was printed as a comic in Bill Noir, which is a Parisian art magazine. So of comics to reach many different audiences. That's my thing, is to reach a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. Well, recently I'm in this group that they call Abstract Comics, although I hardly do abstraction anymore. I want for the reviewers to show, I do some little crazy side things. This is my collapsible Kunsthalle. I have my own little Kunsthalle museum. It fits in here. And I take me and people do shows, It's like half Barbie size. And I have a show somewhere, like this was the art museum in Olden. As part of the show, I gave a show to some friend of mine. So if any do a tiny little show, about 1 to 15, I'd love to have you do me a little show. And I even have I have a video there and all sorts of stuff. And in the stuff I'm doing now, I'm doing these covers. This is one of the earliest ones, teasing myself about my own. They seem to be based on 3 and 4 colors. This explains me well. Here comes in Puritan. This is the one that was the big hit, actually. It got me lots of shows and stuff. shows are of antagonistic, I suppose, but it's called Paint. I went to a gallery, I went to a museum, and it was a show of Kara Sanders. It was a woman I like, but the show was just a polished egg in the middle of the museum and nothing else. I thought that's about the end of conceptualism for me, because then the curator spoke an hour and a half about the egg. And so I only painted this. Shut up and paint.
So how do you fit in the group exhibits? I want people's art to be distinctive, and I think yours is totally distinctive. You're not going to get mistaken for Graham Moses or Richter or anybody else.
No.
But I mean, does your art show up in group exhibits?
Yeah, a lot, mostly, as a matter of fact. I think a lot of times I get away with stuff. They let things that when I say them or I write an article for people find offensive, when I make them, a piece about it, or either a panels installation, which is gigantic, or these little comments, especially. These are smaller paintings. Then often there's kind of comments on the thing. I was the only painter in a video show once, and that was interesting. So I made a painting. I think I have it. Now, here's one, Epiphany. I'm that title. That's my work. It said German, so this is a video painting. Just put it in a dark room and shake it. And so that was amusing, and they put it in for that reason. And then I also got to do an installation, because these works actually better, as you see here, in a group. Nothing would interest you for a different kind of audience. I realized that these paintings were too expensive for a lot of people to buy any of them. It's not that bad, but they're about 4,000 or so it's like $1,000. But it's not bad, or up the big ones are within 10,000 or something. And people told me that they wanted several, so I did this print. As you see in the lower right-hand corner, I just have the empty thing, and then I will draw. I make painting. I want to see for that person, commenting on them, like I did about you. So in the corner, it's a relatively cheap print. It's only like $400, and it also has a little bit of a thing in it. And the covers come in groups where I can do theme things. So I get to do text and not at the same time. I hated text works like Lawrence Weiner, but I do like lettering. I like word games that I'd like to use multiple languages, so it gives me the opportunity. And all the techniques I learned from my dad about how to do all that crazy lettering. Sometimes they're in these installations too by themselves. That was a kiosk group exhibition, or fake kiosk, where all kids are clamoring in all the languages in Switzerland to buy my paintings. They're speaking French, Italian, and Greco-Romanish, and German, and English. This is the first one. Covers. You see some are big. Sometimes they're little. There's 104 little ones and one big one. The panels installation that was sort of a super hit. That was in a Kunsthalle in Kreuzlingen. It was a really big hit. And then every time I show it, it gets me a new exhibition. Every time I show pictures of it.
Picture, did you sell individual pieces at the time of this installation?
Yeah, that's a good question for all of them. I almost never do out of the installations. I will sell all the panel, the covers, the little ones with words on them, like crazy, out of the show. Almost none. I don't know. I think people respect it too much as an installation.
That can be a problem, because I can remember as a gallery, I always would have gorgeous installations, have work, like in this situation, relating to each other, and people would look at the whole installation and think it was really beautiful. I was having dinner Saturday night with Keith Struve. I was remembering his father, Bill Struve, and Bill's still around, but when he had a gallery, he would put the most powerful paintings next to each other. And sort of went, oh my God, you put blinders on and focus down to individual works of art, because you can stand to look at more than one at a time. And I thought that was a really good strategy. I couldn't force myself to do it, but I thought it was a good strategy for general sales.
Yeah, I have to admit, it's true, because sometimes I have tracks by composers and so on. I have Duncan Youngman. Genderman's son is a great composer, interested also in comics and so on. In Paris, he does things for me, and James Swires and so on. It's even more of a unit. But I have to tell you, I have sold every painting out of here except probably the best one, the blue one on the right in the middle, which is the best one, I think, but it's still in my studio. But all the other ones I have sold off afterwards out of my studio. So then I take them down after the show. Then they're in my studio, and people come visit. And then suddenly they see them individually, and then they buy them. And the big blue on the left was bought, for instance, by a big bank. So I don't know how to change it, because I love doing the installation. I sell them off slowly over a year or something later. It's fine with me.
I really do installations too. Hey, I think I should see if I can get back control and see if people have questions. You want to go through these and then give it back to me so we can take questions?
This is my, see a close-up. You can see the technique a bit. It's rather, the surface is very important, actually. This is Lennon as Beetle and Superman. This is a recent one, a very large painting. You see, I drip, but actually it's a kind of pop dripping. It's probably related to David Reed. He thinks so, at least. This is one of my dissertation, which is full of pictures. This is, I think, the best one from the dissertation. Every chapter has its own painting at the beginning, and well, this is the cover of the dissertation, which I did for fun. And every one chapter ends with a sort of comic sequence, and chapters are full. That's new for me, and that I'm going to be expanding. And most recent one. You see that with loops here a lot. So it's a sequentiality, but it's what I call econo-sequentiality. Because what painting has, it's so beautiful. You can have sequentiality, but also all at once. That's it. So, that's the truth for right now. I think these are all the paintings from my PhD dissertation, plus the installation itself is actually one of the chapters. And the chapter about it is comment on it. But most of it's not my art. That was done is kind of fun for me. Most of the thing is actual dissertation, which is about my own philosophical theory of art.
Cool. All right, you guys. People have asked questions. Sarah, it's interesting with Sarah. Sarah's in Hong Kong, and a dealer. Everybody else in this class is. That's an interesting thing. She says, "How do you decide how do you price your work?" She asks.
How do I price my work? As much as possible. In theirs, actually, of the little cover ones, I always make fun of the fact that because they look like comic books, so comic books have prices. They were 12 cents when I was a kid, so I usually write a price, and it's usually as much as possible or something like that. We have actually a calculation system here. What we call constants in Switzerland. We go, because with the centimeters, you go by the height plus width time constant, and you know kind of how famous you are by the constant. So a really famous artist has been, the constant would be like 30. A pretty good one is doing it 22. Mine are 19.
Victor.
So, what?
I'm Victor.
Oh, Jesus, his would be 10,000 or something. He gets a list of 60 people who will any painting at any price at any time. So it is kind of the reality of it. But do me for everybody there, and go look at Jack Whitten, who did abstract things far ahead of time, but doesn't get the acknowledgement because he's a black man. Like some way to do that.
If anybody's got some more questions, you guys can type them, or I prefer you stick your hand up and I can call on you, so to speak. I'm going to ask Gina. Gina, you're not muted. Gina, are you having trouble hearing? I don't know if you can hear me. You call tech support. I'm going to up that number for you.
Should I down this image now, or what?
I don't think you're sharing anymore.
Okay. But I'm not seeing the big thing this video is why. Oh, no, it's for sharing your desktop. Do I have to do something?
All right, I'm sharing and give it back to me.
Stop.
Left center.
Okay, share. Ah, there you go.
Okay, you weren't anymore.
I'm back. finish the pricing, it's just basically that. Start off. I try and actually slightly underprice mine, I have to say. So if the price would be, it goes up every show until recently. Now we had the crash, I suppose it's there. But let's say about 10,000, then I'm pretty to go a little bit lower. I do actually sell everything, and I'm happy at that. I mean, sometimes they'll call and say, come visit, they want to come visit, and a couple of times I say I don't have anything in my studio, and they think I'm like showing off and lying. But the point is to get rid of the bastards. It's not to pile up stuff for forever. So I sell them or make certain kinds of deals. Oh God, what high stuff? I forgot the word in English, but it's like a retirement home for deaf people here, and they had a new thing. It's beautiful. It's 3 stories, and they wanted 3 huge paintings from me. They went and calculated, and they could only afford 2. So instead of price, I sold them the 2 and gave them the 3rd one for free, just to make clear. And then I gave them 2 other ones to show on loan, and I change it every so often. Because of that, I've sold some of those to other people that came in.
This was like a semi-permanent installation or a permanent installation?
Well, now it is permanent. There's 3, and you can see it from the road. It's really beautiful. It's like a glassed-in porch thing, 3 stories high, and in each one you see like a bigger than door-sized painting of mine, 3 and above each other. I knew it was going to be wonderful, and so I thought instead of decreasing my prices, so I kept my prices and just gave them one.
They work there. I mean, they bought pieces and you augmented it. That's a brilliant strategy. I like that.
I think it's a wonderful way. It was suggested to me by Pedro Noser, who's my gallerist and comes from Zurich, and he said, keep prices, but be willing to give deals and so on. But go down. Don't lower yourself because they think you value yourself less. You say, no, I think cost $15,000 or whatever. The guest can maybe do that. Could say, you know what, my buddy, and you bought so much from me, I'll take 20% off or 10% off. I always say yes to that because the gallerist knows better what they're doing. But they directly to me, they say, well, that's just a cost. I always give the share to anybody else if they were involved in it. If that guest is involved, if Peter's involved, then I give him his part. But I'm open to other stuff too. They're like, yeah, sure, I'll give the thing. It's something like that.
When I maintain, I'm curious about your opinion here, that first of all, we're not our artwork. I mean, our value isn't determined by how much our art sells for or by how much somebody, if they don't like our art, that doesn't they necessarily do or dislike us. Let's say you've consigned your work to a gallery and the price is $10,000 American dollars. Yeah. And it doesn't sell, and it comes back to your house. And then a few months later, somebody comes by and says, "Can I see your work?" And you show them that same piece that was in the gallery for $10,000. How's it now?
But the thing is, of course, it's no longer then tied to the gallery.
Right.
In the gallery, and they came to me and they said, "I saw it in the gallery, and you know what? I didn't buy it there, and I'm going to buy it." And I say, "Okay," and then I split it half and half with the gallery, and I do that. Now, if I'm not in the now, if they didn't see it until they came to me, I've got the ability to actually sell it for half. And I'm not going to do that, but I'm prepared to go down. I would be
prepared to go down, but once you've priced your work, you've determined its value. It's like having a
you got to kind of stay.
Not you. Its own intrinsic value. I think it gives you some greater flexibility, but the value hasn't changed.
And you don't just jump around too much because it's like a shirt. But you can't. I have 2 friends, for instance, who paint very well anymore. But we're doing the abstract stuff. I have 2 friends who painted very similarly, and one I make like 10,000 francs, which is almost $1 to $1 now. Painting, middle-sized painting. He makes 30,000 one, and makes nothing, never sells anything. And I swear to God, the other 2 are almost as good as me.
Yeah.
And really like 3 at the same quality level. So it has a lot to do with side issues. And I'm happy with it. Actually, I'm just happy if I can live. And I live 50 to 60% from my paintings, and then about 50% from the side scraps, so teaching and stuff.
I'm getting people who are texting questions to me.
Yep.
Do you repeat the formula that you use for pricing your artwork?
Well, you have to find your own constant.
Let's find yours. Take a piece that's 1 meter by 2 meters.
So 1 in 19 now. I have to look it up. I always have to look up because it goes up every show. But
Okay, assume it's 90. Call it 20 for easy math.
Say 20, and then I have a meter by a meter, so I do meter plus a meter is 2 times 20 is, so that's 4,000.
4,000 francs.
Yeah, which is $1. Now, $1 and a franc's almost identical.
You know, I think a lot of artists, I mean, I sort of price work at a gallery by the square inch. But, you know, if one painting is twice as big as, if one painting's $5,000 and there's one that's exactly twice that size, it's not twice that much money. It's more like, you know, an additional 75%.
Yeah, I kind of cut my own throat with doing these smaller paintings because a lot of people used to come and paint the really giant ones. Would kind of like 4 of the little ones, but it still doesn't add up the size of the big one because they expect cheaper from the littler ones. So littles are a pain in the ass because they're just as much trouble to paint as a big one, in my opinion. Almost identical, a small painting or large one. But I just follow what I think should be the size should be. So I just roughly stick to that and then see. And very roughly, you know, and if it's depending on who it is, you know, a bank comes to me, you know, I'm going to overcharge them on purpose as much as I can. They're fucked anyway, and you know, so I'm going to charge them the whole thing, if not maybe even ask for more. If it's for the thing though, like that with this free time thing, well, then I was willing to make a deal, so I slide around a little. You know?
It is where the price doesn't work or where the sales drop off. Too small and then people don't buy it size.
You know, I don't seem to see that at all. It's funny enough, you know, there's always this sort of middle-class desire amongst my students to do, like, kind of middle-sized paintings. But, you know, as I was telling them, the middle class doesn't buy paintings at all anyway. Selling this primarily upper middle class and the rich. And I generally tend to sell bigger ones easier than I sell smaller ones. If I
PhD in?
Art history and theory.
Art history and theory. How many schools in the United States give PhDs in art? Art history, do I guess.
Oh, there's art history. Yeah.
There's many studio PhDs.
You know, that PhD in art is new. I don't think anybody in the United States yet. There's Australia, I believe Hong Kong. There's a few there around that area where they do PhDs in art. I talked long with Jim Elkins about that when he was in Switzerland recently, and both of us are not really in agreement with the idea of a PhD about art. I think artists should study other stuff so they have things to talk about, but I didn't really want to write that chapter about myself because I made artist statements, and I didn't really want to write. But my professor was correcting me because mine is a theory of how art works, and it's based on agency, believing that artists actually do something on purpose. So it's deconstructivist, where they say artists are just symptoms. He said, well, you can't be a subjective, performative, embodied theory and not embody it yourself. So you got to try it on yourself, even if you fail. And so that's why I did it.
How many did you spend getting your PhD?
Oh, 10 million. I kept starting and stopping, and then my first professor got really it was in linguistics, and realized I was anti-deconstructivist and still the big shot. And that's outside the mainstream too far and all this, and meanwhile I had to do the Latin diploma. It's called the Grossus Latino. Here you have to know Latin perfectly to do this stuff. I had never had Latin. So then I took off 3 years and learned Latin and passed the 2-day-long test. Then I went back and wrapped it up. So I would say seriously 7 years. Did
this distract from your art career?
Actually, yeah, but it was my art. And I would say, not for instance, the whole dissertation, all the paintings for it and all the stuff is going to be a major show. Organization is Markus Landau, the director of the Art Museum in Thurgau, or Thurgovia in English. It will be the key to the rest of everything I do, I think.
I think you're a little too close to it to answer this question honestly, but was it worth it?
Yeah, I wanted to do it, and I wanted to write that theory up, and I wanted to write a book. I tell people it's like my Über das Geistige in der Kunst, so it's my spiritual and art, like Kandinsky's book. It's more like a beginning to my San Rocco, Tintoretto's big, like Sistine Chapel. It's kind of my philosophical, artistic 16 chapters. It's where I go off, and that's definitely, it's one of the most exciting things I did. It made me do a lot of art. It suffered a bit in sales because I refused to sell any of the art until I have this show now. So I had much less sales for only really 1 year because I've been selling off everything else I had up until last year.
Are you concerned about legacy?
Yeah, I'm a historian concerned about the past and the future. As David Reed said, you're not the last artist, you're a long line. There's many before us and many after us. And I'm concerned about both of that. I worry a lot about things like Goya. And think about stuff. What would so-and-so say? As if alive. I want people to do that in 400 years. I want them to worry about me.
Ask Joanne. Joanne's had her hand raised forever, and I'm unmuting Joanne, and you can ask your question. Most of the others have been writing them, but Joanne, go ahead.
My question is, because you sell internationally, do you feel that the humor in your work is interpreted differently, and does that affect the sales of your work?
Question, yeah, definitely. It's sometimes difficult. It comes across in different ways. I noticed, for instance, the Swiss are not good about being critics themselves. They think it's wonderful if I criticize America. They don't take it too well if I criticize them. So it can be read in different ways. So different groups are very different, I think. My work is very few, though, as you saw, actually, and it's just sort of a little slight things, and very it's about me more than anything else, and so it can be interpreted in different ways. But I have some very vicious things. I did some anti-George Bush stuff and things like that, where people actually in America complain to the galleries. So it has happened.
Do you have Republicans follow your work? Is that what you just said?
No, but I think they just came to the gallery to complain about it. I hope they never come around me, but yeah. But in somebody's gallery, I was in, I think, Sculpture Fair in a gallery from New York, put me in, and I had one, so the, about unelected areas or something, it was just what had to do with Bush. I complained about it. So, but usually it hasn't. I mean, but though it's more aimed at my life, or it's more general. The installations, of course, more sequential, have very few words. Generally, the covers are like footnotes to the installations. I have the big installation, then on the side now, for the last several years, I have some of these turning racks that they used to sell comic books in. Paul is a comic book fan. As a matter of fact, one curator in New York even found one that on top says, "Hey Kids Comics." I gave her a good kiss for that one. And the paintings are in there, in the one. And so that to the side is actually footnotes, commenting on the work and my situation during it, and one of them, because I talked to you about the thing. I forgot to tell you that. And different stuff is whatever's going through my mind as I produce this. While I'm painting the big works, I paint the little ones on the side, this kind of comment. So it's academic.
This class about how there are lots of different art worlds, and I think you're illustrative of, having sort of created your own. To a large extent, the European model, I think, is different than ours, and it seems, pardon the pun, it seems foreign. But I think you've navigated well in the United States and well in Europe, and you've found your own path. I mean, I don't think every artist here has to show with Larry Gagosian or see that Gagosian is something to aspire to. You need to be yourself and find out where you fit, and I think you've done really admirably. Now,
the galleries have it the worst right now, if I can jump in. I don't want to pick on them because I think they have the most. You have to talk to gallerists there. So people should not be so dependent on them, but also not be so nasty with it. They actually have it worse because of this cure dominance. And so I think it's time to build some collaborations between those things. Where galleries really support people and stick with their galleries. And I have a couple galleries that I would do anything for. One is an agency stuff. So I think it's complicated, but I think what I want to say to Chicago people is I'm not the right model in many ways because I'm a leaver, and I don't really think you should be a leaver. I think you should stick and fight out. I run away. I've run away from several countries and about women, and I've done I don't necessarily think that's good. I think you should build a scene. That's what I saw that and I was part of it in London. I've seen that and I'm part of it in Berlin, I tell you the truth. But there you need critics, galleries, curators, and artists, and people like you, Paul, that are related to all together. And the problem is Chicago never gets that because you don't have any decent criticism, and the curators don't go visit the people. But if you could get the curators visiting the artists like we get, and you get critics, which don't have any good ones either, the German art world is even worse. But if you can get together like they did in LA and in London and in Berlin, you have a scene, and everybody will come to you, and then you can just all this stuff will go into them. And we don't even send slides and stuff here, and I don't think it's even of any importance anymore. I wouldn't even send images of people and stuff. I'd say build a scene and get them to come to you. And I do some ways. I just be myself, do my weird thing, and then they come to me.
Rory, I hope you're here. I'm going to unmute you, Rory. I'm assuming that you exhibit in the United States and in Europe, and I want you to second what Mark is saying in terms of the differences. Share your own experience. Rory, go ahead.
I am very successful in either place, but I think I've got an idea of building something and them to you. I think we're in this new models, and I don't feel the system works at all. And I think the more of an art to begin to sort of try different manifestations of in an alternative manner, I think that's good. And I think if you do begin to bring and build a nexus of people, there's going on in LA right now. I just took a bunch of students out there. There's work happening in public practice, public spaces there, and it's a really solid group of people. One pretty well just a year long of it at LACMA, and they're just getting paid very well. But now there's this momentum that's been created in that city in particular in regards to these projects that are forging new territory in public space and ephemeral works and things that are outside the gallery context. And I think so striving to like have some sort of that are sort of like the result of whatever ends up happening. I'm not answering any questions, but
I think you're reinforcing what Mark said, and you're also talking about how the dynamics are changing, and I think it's intelligent to be aware of what they work and participate in. Maybe we don't talk so much about trends in what artists are making, but I think we can talk more about trends and how art is being exhibited and how the role of galleries are changing. It has to do with the power of the internet. We can have people in this discussion tonight on 3 different continents. I think that's pretty significant. Anybody else want to say anything? That's interesting. All right, I'm going to unmute absolutely everybody, and we're going to have an echo chamber and see if anybody wants to say anything. All right, you guys are all unmuted. Somebody talk.
I want to say something.
Talk.
Vicky.
Can't hear.
I'm Vicky. I want to say something.
All right, Vicky. I'm going to mute everybody and then unmute you. Hold on one second. Vicky, you are unmuted. And then I'm going to mute Mark on the assumption that you want to talk to him. Go ahead.
Consider that galleries are dead and curators are now the ones in charge, and an artist trying to get the curators to look at my work and come to my place. How do I do that? Having shows in galleries, how do you get them to come to your place?
Mute me.
Yeah, you're muted.
Okay, because you'll see the muted thing. That's a damn good question. So that was a good comment from me. I think actually that's in transition too. I think that there's so many curators now being churned out by all the different places that they're starting to compete. It used to be tiny mafia. Now there are tons of curators. I think get your curator. If you start it, the best thing is to get a scene and look. Curators need artists to get something. Look, people interested in not the big shots. Don't send all your stuff to Larry Rinder, although he's a great guy and he'll look at it. But find the less known that might be interested, and you hang out. I'm sure you go to the scene and you go places. And so when I meet people that are somewhat interested in that direction or whatever of my work, then ask them and just, why don't you come visit me? And it bugs the shit out of them, actually. I keep sending them stuff. And some of them almost 2 years to get them to come visit me. But if I get them, usually. But I don't think the curator thing is so important. I still think, we have to take responsibility ourselves. It's not either a gallery or a curator or a critic. When I'm in the art world, critics were the little Nazis. Just find ways to just, do those. Find and I think the internet is important for the fact that it has gone around the gatekeepers of the media. And I'm the corresponding editors for Art in America. But they ask me, like, why do I write more online than I do for them? Because it's not, hey, they don't pay shit anyway, I told them. And then it's always controlled who you can write and all this stuff. And I think we use the internet as a tool of the art media instead of the art magazines and stuff. You art through it, but you can get known, and I think you can seen. Bill, we have a friend right now who lives in a small town here. He's a conceptual artist, and he's been using the people in the village, incorporating into his artwork and stuff, and he's sky now. He's doing fabulous where he is. And I've done that more too, but I'm just, I get pissed off about stuff and I take off. And I was talking to him later once, and he said he had the same problem. Every time I go somewhere, I was thinking, why don't I live here? And every time I go to France, I want to live in France. And every time I go to Italy, I want to live in Italy. I just want to live everywhere.
Yeah, I'd be anywhere too. I think we should wrap this. Mary Broger had some interesting comments, and I'm going to send her your email address, unless you want to share it with absolutely everybody. And I think Mary's got some questions for you, and I think it'd be cool if you guys were back in contact with one another. And
we have it on Facebook. You don't want to stick around real quick before we wrap up, or do you want to?
Go ahead up, dude. Illusion. Most artists don't get there.
Don't get illusion.
No, they don't have one. Be my guest. Take it away.
Well, okay, I think historically looking at it, we're in an equivalent of the mannerism. Just like there was the big Renaissance, then there was the weaker mannerism period, and it went on to a new strong Baroque. I think we're in the same now. We're in a period, but that doesn't mean you're weak. In the middle of mannerism, you had El Greco, and you had Rosso Fiorentino, so you also had shit like a Lori. So, but nowadays, the best thing is to be idiosyncratic, be yourself, build your own positions. We will slowly but surely build postmodernism. And it's not to degrade postmodernism. Those things have to be worked through. It's not as strong as modernism. We have to be clear about that we're in a different period. We have different things. And look to the positive in it. What can we build out of it? And for some it's idiosyncratic by nature. It'll need to get these influences, a strange mix I have, comics and street art and sign painting and philosophy and all together. And so I think it can be a positive thing, but
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording. I appreciate your input and all your help with this thing. I think that